Welcome to this EDUcast, 5 ways to increase customer loyalty, an issue everyone deals with. And today with me is Steve Wingfield. Steve is a telecom sales expert at a company called Bicom Systems. And Bicom Systems sells to a lot of resellers, to a lot of VARs and the like. And their concern is, how do their customers retain their customers? And so we're going to talk about 3 important points today. Customer loyalty, what does that really mean? What happens when you lose that loyalty and you have churn within your community of customers? And how do you go about increasing the loyalty so you can retain those customers? Because when you lose a customer, it costs you more in many cases to get them back than it did to sell them in the first place. So let's start off, Steve, with what's the importance about customer loyalty?
Thank you, Gary. If I start with the slide, as is, the importance of customer loyalty is the winning of the new customers, and it's probably your primary goal. But if you don't keep those customers long term, what is the point? And while a new big sale looks and feels impressive in the budget, security ultimately to the business comes in the form of month-to-month payments from satisfied customers. We're all familiar with the efforts it takes to get those first sales, but the pleasure of waking up at the first of the month, pressing the button and seeing the sales ledger jump is far more satisfying over the longer term than that one deal. But also, as well as keeping those customers, but maybe the only thing that's even more satisfying than seeing that regular monthly income is getting the referrals from those customers.
Now, Steve, one of the problems that everybody has is churn. And churn is a penalty. What kind of penalties do you encounter when we have this churn?
Gary, if I take you through 5 points that we've identified. The high cost of remarketing. You've already spent the budget once and now you need to spend it again. That all of that effort then reduces your later prospects of growing the business. You do see an immediate effect on the revenue, which ultimately has the loss of profit. But perhaps in some ways more frustrating than any of the 4 above is the damage to the reputation. Whatever the reason is that customer left you, it's fairly probable that it will be mentioned to at least 1 or 2 other people, and certainly you're not going to get the referrals that we just spoke about that matter most. But if I were to sum all of this up in one single phrase, you are just chasing your own tail.
And I would think reputation is extremely easy to lose.
Yes, and for sure, we've seen consequences with customers that have come to us having been in previous situations where they may not have had as complete a solution as they wanted, or whether they've had issues of voice quality. And what they describe as they come to us of the reputation that they've lost is at times heart-rending, all because of who they had depended on had let them down.
Now let's talk about customer loyalty directly, and I believe we have 5 different ways of looking at this, and all of those ways could produce better loyalty. Some are better than others. Would you discuss the 5 concepts we're going to go through later in this discussion?
Thank you, Gary. Let's go through these 5 slowly here on this slide, and then as we move the slides on, we can go into each of them in more detail. So those topics that we'll cover are how to provide a complete solution, then how to ask and inform your customers, to ask them what it is that they want, but also to make sure that they're aware of all that they do have and all they will have. To provide a customer service that goes above and beyond the first expectations. And as we go through the slides, we'll look a little bit as to how that is done, both in terms of the initial contacts, but also the tools needed to achieve it. Custom solutions to solve problems. very often the reason that you lose a customer is there is one item that they so want, and they may have tried to get this from you, but because of whatever reason, that frustration builds and they start looking elsewhere. Again, we'll go into this in more detail. But in keeping with some of the above, the sheer need to keep up with new trends, and again, it's not just a quick description we'll give, but some practical measures as to how you achieve that.
Now let's move on to the first point you were making, the provide a complete solution. Why should we do that?
Why you should provide a complete solution is that if you supply only one or perhaps two or three of your customer solutions, they will not be fully committed. By definition, they will also be looking in other directions. And at any one moment, an event may cause them to switch to other providers. That could be compatibility issues, or it could be a better pricing, or it could be a specific feature that makes the difference. But perhaps another thing to comment is, what is a complete solution? And it is all of the parts that your customers need to be able to use their service. So if you provide all the pieces, your customers will commit to you and your company and your solution fully. They will have no compatibility issues and therefore no sales pitches from their other providers. And for them to consider switching to a different provider would become a far more radical and disruptive change. If you consider what they've already invested in you, a simple example could be an IVR, where that may have been linked with their CRM. They won't just dump that in the bin and go somewhere else, unless you really cause them to have those reasons.
If I were to summarize this page, what I'm hearing from you is that by following through with a complete solution, you also reduce your competition. Is that correct?
Very much. Very much. And not only is that at the stage of reducing churn once you have them as a customer, but it will become evident in the very first sales pitches as to the completeness and the solidity with which you keep your existing customers and why. Most of all, if those prospects come to you as a referral from an existing customer.
Now, we've used the term complete solution, but that has multiple elements. Would you go through those elements for us?
We have a few elements here. Telephony features, unified communications, billing, call quality, security, mobility, and also anything else that your customer needs. With telephony features, there's the list that we're all aware of, IVR, queues, but it's very often the end of that thin tail that makes the difference, something that could be obscure. We had an example with a partner we worked with where their end-user customer needed the national anthem played at 11 a.m. over the speakers of all of their phones. We've also had cases where the call center was set up in such a manner, and although I say call center, it was only 5 users within an enterprise of otherwise 100 posts, but that particular part of the company was answering the calls that came in. And to get some true efficiency and some ease of use for the agents that were there, we made sure that as the call arrived at the IVR, the user dialing in was asked to enter their account number, and then the account would pop up on the user's interface. But then another example could be faxing from the desktop, where it isn't just that a file is sent, but that you get the full report, the full legal proofs as to the way in which the fax was sent. I suppose one summary in this is, and you probably know this from your own experience, Gary, of years in telephony, you never know what the next customer wants. And that feature is always something specific, always something different.
Let's investigate that for a minute, because I think one of the things that's very important, what you're talking about, is feedback from the customers. And you not only have to wait for it, but you should ask for it. Isn't that correct?
But when we put up a slide of Ask, Inform, Inspire, a lot of it is self-evident. We all know that we should speak with the customers to find out what is going on and how they want it. You need to ask, you need to inform. In many ways, you need to inspire customers. As a slide that those ideas put up, it seems something that's self-evident. It's nothing we wouldn't all agree with. But then to get it done is the difference that makes the difference. And that isn't just the wish to speak with customers, we all have that, but the organizing it. And above all, the tools to organize it, so that you have a dialer, for example, that calls out. But then when your agents are connected with your customers, that they can see clearly the products that the customer already has, the products that you might be able to give them. And from our perspective of who we deal with, now that we know that we've put those measures in ourselves to deal with our partners, they in turn can use the same tools to deal with their customers, who, although their customers may not be in telephony, themselves again still need those very telephony tools to be able to contact their own customers.
And let's talk about customer service for a minute, because it seems to me that what you're trying to demonstrate here is you use the tools to help your customers to help their customers make all this work and deliver good customer service.
Yes, but if I make one slight more distinction, not only do we use the tools, not only do we help our customers have those tools to contact their customers, but those very same tools go right the way to the third stage, that the end users that our partners are working with also need those same tools to be able to contact their customers efficiently, to be able to explain the products and services to the very end users.
One of the things I think is important here in building customer relationships is getting the right person to face the customer, the account manager. Would you talk about the account manager and the activity that the account manager pursues?
Yes, thank you, Gary. One of the key pillars to the work that we've done is to make sure that our account managers not only come with enormous experience, but that we've given them the necessary tools, not just that they can explain to our customers features, functions, new products, but that they can also supply to our customers the relevant collateral that they can then take that forward to their own business customers.
I think what that means, though, and I think this is very important, is being proactive rather than reactive to the customer.
Yes, which is helped by having the tools in place in the beginning. It's helped by having the organization of the dialers and the CRM that I mentioned, so that that moment of the proactiveness just simply flows.
Now, when this customer account manager is operating, what should they be doing? How do they help?
There are the tools that I mentioned, but also because our account managers are dealing with so many partners across the world, and the experiences that they take from each of those, the expertise that they're able to provide is both wide and deep. A couple of times we've had customers that have built their business to 500, 1,000 extensions, but then taking it to the next step, creating the marketing campaigns that they need to take it to the next step. May well be where our account manager spends an hour or so and providing documents that we've put in place already in order to explain these.
I would think of the account manager actually has to have experience in doing the business that they're advising in and bringing that experience to the account management function. Now, one of the problems I've have, and you have, we all have, is things keep changing in our environment. So we start talking about customer solutions and their retention. If you don't have what they need, you end up losing them as a customer, don't you?
Very much. The customer solutions are crucial to customer retention. And it may well be that it's a small item that's beginning to niggle with a customer, and then over the years that grows and that causes them to look elsewhere. You really do have to continue to advertise your willingness to create those custom solutions so that customers do get exactly what they need. To some extent that can be done by the providing of case studies, and this is very much the work of the account managers that we have, of providing that collateral and tool, those examples.
Now, how do we start mitigating these problems? How do we work to find a solution? What's your advice here?
Well, beyond the ask and inform and the constant conversation, when it comes to something as detailed as a custom solution, the need to sit down, that may be physical, or it may even be a three-way conversation. I know from our own experience, we've often gone on a conference call with a customer, with the end user, and found a solution where previously nobody thought it would be possible.
I would think, though, once you find a solution and create a unique solution, you can then pass this on to the other customers that you have so they can use it as well.
Very much. And to give a recent enough example, we had a call center in Florida that was supplying translation services. So to hospitals. So a patient in the hospital who could not speak English would speak with the doctor, and this would go through to a call center in El Salvador. And what we delivered was not just the core telephony, nor even the billing, but that at the end of the month, each hospital would receive an invoice detailing each of the doctor's calls, but that the pricing of the invoice would be done not from the moment that the doctor called, but from the moment that the operator in El Salvador answered the call. And then that kind of solution repeats itself with the next customer.
Let's move onward and talk about trends. And I think one of the problems is trends are something, in many cases, we can't even predict. How do you keep up with the trends that are happening in telephony?
By reading Telecom Reseller. There's a slight seriousness to the point of that, but also you need to keep yourself available to other channels. And we have several that do that. They then often synthesize it, and then in the monthly newsletters that we send out, we make these points relevant, but also with the account manager's calls on that regular basis, we keep our resellers up to date.
Could you provide us an example of that?
Well, just looking at the way in which the whole of the voice business has moved over the past 10 years, there was a time that getting dial tone to work with some functionality such as IVR and queues over IP was amazing enough in itself. But today it isn't just that customers are mobile, that they need for that mobility to be linked, not only to see the presence of their other users, but to be able to join a conference on the fly, to be able to send chat messages from their telephone.
One of the problems that I think you've been alluding to is this. You really don't want a series of solutions from multiple sources, because then they don't necessarily work well, or they work very poorly together. You have all the pieces, but they're scattered and maybe don't interoperate well.
Not only the interoperating, but simply the getting it installed. You're showing on the slide the different mobile applications, but those users possibly have little or no experience of telephony. They don't know how to set that up. unless they can install it ready to go, you will have problems. And then once it's installed ready to go, all of those features should work. They should be able to send a fax from the device. They should be able to page out to other colleagues. They should be able to leave an automatic voicemail rather than having to spend 30 seconds each time repeating a message.
I like this next slide because I want to change the title. And really, my fun title here would be, You Wrote the Book about how to start your own ITSP.
We did, which comes from the experiences that we've mentioned. And that's available to anybody who wishes to download it, and I'd certainly encourage it if you're looking in this direction. But also beyond that, I suggest that you get in contact with us and that we spend some time to better understand your business.
Well, let's talk about that contact information. We've got the website here and we've got the sales message. I like the picture at the bottom here because it really shows you that you cover a whole range of capabilities behind the ITSP, not just simply one piece of it. And let's move forward to other information that's available to the listeners today, the case studies, the blog, the white paper, your brochures. And I'd like to thank you, Stephen, for participating here, and I hope everyone got some useful information from today's EDUcast.